You can't save anybody until you save yourself.
Yeah, and we have to know what our interests are. That's a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah.
Like what
we have to agree on it.
We have to agree on what
And
are
that's
the
the tough
things
part.
that we want to see change. What are the things that we want to see improved? What are the new initiatives? What are the new policies that we want to put in place? Can we agree on that? Like that's a step, right? Before we do all that, like what's the agreeing?
What's the top 3 issues for Black America? Put in chat. What do you think, Ian?
Number 1 would be financial freedom. Number 2 will be
I mean like if we were to lobby, let's say we had a very powerful Black super PAC right now, right? And we were pushing agendas and we wanted 3 votable items. We wanted 3 votable items for this election. What would be those top 3 votable items?
RFK told us reparations are off the table.
Not gonna happen. not
gonna happen. And they was so mad at that. I'm like, do you want the truth or no? If
not gonna happen.
Those comments bothered you, you're not ready for the conversation with Council on Foreign Relations or Economic Forum. But for me, it would be financial freedom or economic equality.
But how do you get economic? That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you do that? How do you get to like what bill would be passed? All right, so let me get so my 3 would be reparations, criminal justice reform.
Yep, I like that one
on a variety of different levels. Yep. And the last one would probably be education reform.
Okay. How would you reform education?
I would.
Well, do we agree with that?
I would change. Like, let's say I was the king of America, right? And I could just wave a wand and do whatever I want.
The narcissist in you is coming out, Rashad. They be saying that about us.
I would change the so how public schools are funded right now is based off of property taxes per said area.
Yep.
Which obviously, if you live in a wealthy area, then you pay more property taxes and your schools are better. If you live in a poor neighborhood, there's less property taxes and your schools are better. I would put it all in one pot and divide it equally. Right. Or let's say there's $100 billion that's paid in property taxes in New York. I would put it all in one pot and I would divide that equally to every school.
Yeah. All right. What inside of reparations?
What other things I would do as well?
What inside of reparations? What would be the first thing inside of reparations? Is it land? What is it?
Well, it's going to be difficult to do the land thing.
Unless they put us in like
Wyoming,
Montana, Idaho.
There's a lot of livable space.
No, it's a check. It's a check. I think it's a check. That's the easiest way to go about it. I think it's a check.
Will bankrupt the world.
Yeah.
That's the part that's tough. Like really quick, can someone put in chat if reparations were a check was given? What's the number that's given in today's dollar?
Once you say that, I know like there's people that's thinking like it's a Chappelle episode to get all over, right? Like we got money.
But
like
once again, Ian, it's not an all or nothing thing, though.
Yeah.
It's not an all or nothing thing. It's not like you gotta give 100 trillion. You like I feel like
let's say they give 200 billion. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it does set a precedent that now the companies that were built, New York Life, the other companies that were built off the backs of slavery, they would have some issues about market cap shrinkage because then those companies would have to be divvied up. A lot of banks would have to be divvied up, or they would collapse a whole lot of banks at one time. The other thing I thought, even when Chanos collapsed his fund, what's the easy way to get out of being in the hedge fund business? To say all of my gains went down and go opposite of the market. So I think even if they did cut the checks for reparations, all of a sudden, how we saw these mid-sized banks go under, all of a sudden banks will flop. VC firms will flop to level set us to not pay us out. And that's why, if nothing else, I respect the RFK so much for saying, essentially, it's illegal to give reparations. I agree with your point about being all or nothing, but it's a bad precedent to be set. I keep saying, a upper respiratory infection in 2020 sent to us by Lina dropped our GDP 20%. They get to cutting us checks. It's going to be tough. And let's be honest, I can divide one every two. The money's not there.
Yeah. But even inside that conversation, now the conversation would have shifted to like who qualifies for that check, right? Right. So then it gets.
What you mean who qualifies for it?
Who receives a check?
Black people from America.
Because they're gonna
That's
say
an easy answer.
you were not a descendant of a slave.
Right? Like,
Why not?
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that people who might say, like, are you a descendant of a slave, right? So, like, if I trace my ancestry back, it might go to Jamaica via England.
Yeah, but that's not you.
That's what I'm saying. Who?
Your parents are immigrants, so you would be disqualified.
Thank you.
I'm not sure about
That
Ian.
sucks.
I'm not sure about Ian's background. What's your background, Ian? Are you?
I'm half black, half crazy. Put crazy in chat if you think I'm crazy.
Black, half crazy.
Family, Alabama.
But yeah,
Mississippi,
all right. So me and Ian would get a check. You gotta
They about
take
to clip this up.
You gotta take your
Ian and
claim.
Rashad plan to take over.
You gotta take your claim up with the UK. You guys should be get checks too, but you gotta take the British gotta give you guys
I should
checks
fight for you though. Fight with you.
for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
I'm with you.
Solidarity. For sure. That's it. That's it.
Where's
It's
Justin
not complicated. It's not a complicated conversation to have, bro. We making this more complicated than it
I'm
needs
just
to be.
saying, well, people have to agree. It's interesting. I was gonna say, and Ian, we didn't get yours, but I was gonna actually say education reform, but you said it. I thought you might have said something. Just knowing you, I thought you would have said something in business, in the way lending is.
I mean,
right?
I
thought that would have been yours.
Healthcare, we got health.
I think we need business development in the tech sector,
Right.
and we need an integration into Silicon Valley, because
Right.
that's where all the capital is going.
Yeah, because I mean, we talk about venture capital and we talk about the lack thereof of how much is allocated toward us, making policies, making initiatives around that. To have small business funding like that changes, right? If we're talking about economics, how do we get it? We create business. We know that, right? Being an entrepreneur, creating businesses that scale is one of those ways to financial freedom. So we can have a say inside of political initiatives and world. So I thought that would have been on yours. I'd add that because.
But how you feel about my property tax thing?
I think that's
real.
fire.
That makes sense.
No, that's real.
That makes sense to me.
That's real. Yeah.
Why are we rewarding people that are already rich? Like the rich get richer, right? Like we're already obviously you just putting people in a low, and nobody's ever questioned that. Like just because you're born in a poor environment, you're forced to have a lower level of education, and this is supposed to be America. Like why don't just have it? Just everybody gets the same education. Like that's.
If I can take the other side of that argument in God's Advocate, shout to 19 Keys. In order to have classism and to truly have wealth in this country, you need a disproportionate amount of the people to be in poverty.
For sure.
Right. It's the
that's just the hard truth.
The unfortunate side of the reality.
It's the caste system,
right?